Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video, I'm going to share some of my favorite information about the lovely little plant called blue vervain. Now, this plant is in the verbena family, even though it's got a stalk that is square, which is typical of plants in the mint family. But if you know how to properly identify a blue vervain, you will see that it's got beautiful square stalk, long, skinny plant that goes right up. It's got these beautiful purple flowers, and that is where the medicine is in those flowers. Even though the leaves and sometimes the stalks are used, where the powerful medicine in blue vervain lives is in its tiny, beautiful purple flowers. And this is a plant that's native to North America. So it grows all over the United States and it grows all over Canada. It's very hardy. It's a perennial. It keeps coming back year after year. And the way that it propagates is it drops its seeds. In fact, I know many people here who have gardens. They pay attention and not only plant things on purpose that are medicinal and just for ornamental, but if you know how to properly identify a blue vervain as it's starting to sprout, your yard might just show up randomly, or maybe not so randomly, but with a blue vervain. So what I would say is if you are really into seeing what shows up in your yard that you might consider this is maybe just a weed showing up, if you know how to properly identify what the sprouting seed of a blue vervain looks like, this could randomly show up in your herb garden, in your flower garden, and it makes a beautiful addition to both. And it's very hardy once it gets established. It does like to have mostly full sun, but it will thrive in sun and partial shade. But what it really loves is to have a lot of moisture. So if you go out and you identify blue vervain in the wild, it is growing by rivers and wet places out in the forest where it gets lots of moisture. Depends on, really wherever you live. If you properly can identify blue vervain, it's really super fun to even collect a few of the flowers, go home and make your own tincture with it. It's really fun to have in your herbal apothecary because of how powerful the health benefits are. This is not something that is new. This has a lot of ancient wisdom attached to it. So I'm going to share with you first some of the modern benefits that herbalists today use. I have a tincture that my dad originally formulated that has blue vervain and valerian root. And these together are in a tincture. Both are very hardy bitters. These are very bitter plants. They're amazing for digestion, which most bitters are. But this is a plant that is a little bit interesting to consume because it's so potent. It's very bitter, and it's just got a lot of acrid, kind of sits in the back of your tongue. If you drink a tincture, you put a little bit of tincture in a cup with some water, you drink the tincture. The aftertaste will be on the back of your tongue because it's so bitter and it's so acrid, the actual taste of it. This is one of the things that I learned to appreciate growing up, but this is one of the things that I still appreciate about things that I know are going to affect the different systems of my body, and especially digestion. Because this is something that me personally, as a human walking through this planet, I've kind of always had to pay attention to what I eat, what I put in my body. And I think this is probably true for most of us, but some of us are a little bit more sensitive. And for me, my digestion has always been something I've had to pay attention to. And not just valerian and blue vervain, but those two and other bitter herbs have been very important for me in my journey paying attention to the things that I consume for digestion. Now, some of the modern things that this is known for health-wise are stress and anxiety. This is a very popular nervine. So it's mildly sedative and it helps calm the mind and the body. So it's not just something that calms your nervous system. It helps to quiet an overthinking mind. This is something that even ancient wisdom has taught us about a plant like blue vervain. Very good for digestion, indigestion, bloating, and cramps. Respiratory support. This has got powerful respiratory support because you think about when you're coughing, when you're sick, there's tension And this is an herb that's very supportive along with other herbs that help with respiratory support. So it's traditionally taken for coughs, colds, and sore throats. Pain relief. Okay, you think about a tension headache. You think about pain in your neck. A pain in the neck is one of the most famous things that blue vervain is known for, because it literally relaxes muscular tension. And it's really well known for fevers, headaches, and helping with neck pain. So if you're a person who tends to suffer from that, which really this comes from overthinking. This can cause us to have neck pain when we overthink. If you really, really think about that, right? And I have seen and experienced personally blue vervain changing the game for me when I've had moments of stress, moments of anxiety. In fact, one of my very favorite stories to tell, very, very briefly, is that when my mom passed away, it's been a little more than 10 years now. Of course, it's always stressful to lose someone, but when you lose someone that's that close to you, this formula that has the blue vervain and the valerian absolutely changed the game for me, because it kept me from being overstressed. It kept my nervous system calm. It put my sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system into balance. It helped me with sleep. It helped me with anxiety. And I not only used it during that super stressful time, but I have used this all throughout the years for different things, because like I said, this is one of the formulas that my dad formulated when I was probably in my 20s. So I've been using this and lucky to use this for probably 45 years. So really, really awesome. So it's really also known and used in modern medicine or modern herbalism for women's health, because it has antispasmodic properties, which if you think about when women go through their monthly periods every month, when you're in that phase of your life, there's a lot of cramping and there's muscular spasms happening in that area. So it's very, very good for reproductive health and helping get women through phases of our life that we go through. And I know a lot of herbalists that use blue vervain for their clients during menopause, because it is so beneficial for women's health. Now, blue vervain does contain some vitamins and minerals. They're not in as high amount as some other herbs, but it does contain some of these: vitamin C, vitamin A, and some B complex vitamins. And then the minerals are calcium, magnesium, iron, manganese, and zinc. And in very small amounts, it has silica, which is really, really awesome for bone health and etc. So if you really look at plant medicine, they contain such a broad range of vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, flavonoids, things that help our digestion, things that help our respiratory system, things that help us through all of these phases of our life. And even just when we might get a little bit sick or we might have too much anxiety. In fact, what I really love that I feel is happening right now is that many people in today's world, and here we are pushing toward the end of 2025 as I film this, and I see so many people learning about and turning to plant medicine first. And when you learn about something that is so powerful and yet so humble as blue vervain, you can't go wrong. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the health benefits and different traditional uses in ancient medicine. So this to me is where all of the wisdom lives. We can do all the scientific studies we want. We can, confirm that it has all these vitamins and minerals. We confirm that it affects the nervous system. We can confirm that it helps with fevers and with spasms and muscular aches and tension. And we can confirm that with modern science. But if you really take a minute and you do some research on some of these plants that interest you, and you look at some of the ancient wisdom that is still held for us, you can find some wisdom that is thousands of years old, which is to me where the power lies and the magic, because this is undeniable wisdom from Mother Earth. So I found some really fun things I'm excited to share with you that has to do with ancient wisdom and blue vervain. So blue vervain was seen as a plant that lightened the heart. Okay, native healers used it to ease grief, worry, and agitation. So not just calming the mind, but restoring harmony between the spirit and the body, which I think that is so beautiful. So you can say, oh yeah, it calms the nervous system. but think about it as lightening the spirit, and it brings the mind and the body into harmony. So beautiful. And this is what I found about digestion. Traditional healers believe that poor digestion often stemmed from emotional imbalance or blocked energy. Blue Vervain teas were used after meals to release tension, which aided both the stomach and the soul. I love that. Now, for respiratory support, it was used in smoke or steam rituals. Vervain was thought to lift heaviness from the chest. So if you think about how it affects the respiratory system, this is something that they used to steam up, they used to use in teas, they used to use in different rituals where it would lift the heaviness from the chest. Grief, think about that. I said something about my mom. When my mom passed, this was a very important herb for me when I was going through that grief. And it doesn't just work on a biological level. These things work on an energetic level as well. And this is really the beautiful, magical, amazing wisdom of plants as our companion healers, because they help us on a biological level and on a soul and a spiritual level, which to me, it makes perfect sense. That just lands in me as truth. For the respiratory support, lifts heaviness off the chest, which is basically a poetic way of describing both physical congestion and emotional sorrow. In fact, one of the things that I learned a long time ago is that sadness, the emotion of sadness, is held in our chest, in our lungs. And it makes perfect sense, right? Pain relief. So rather than simply numbing pain, Blue Vervain was believed that it could draw away excess fire. So think about you have inflammation, you have muscular tension, and this is from tension that might be anxiety and stress. And it seems like in our modern world, we tend to have a lot more of that than maybe some of our ancient ancestors had. So it soothes fevers, headaches, and inflamed tempers alike. So think about someone with an inflamed temper. Back in ancient times, they might have given them some Blue Vervain, right? And then women's health was often considered sacred to goddesses, Blue Vervain. It was used to ease menstrual cycles and support during childbirth, linking it to the rhythms of the moon and feminine energy, which I absolutely, totally love, right? I believe there's a massive rise in the divine feminine, where we are in this cycle of human history and the way that we go through these massive cycles, which, 12,000 year cycle is where I feel we're at the top of a new cycle. And it explains a lot about what is happening in the world today. Now, the part of the plant that is used are the leaves and the flowering tops. And it's mostly, if you wanted to really concentrate it, it's the flowers that contain the majority of the medicine. So the flowers, but then the leaves are also used. So think about this. They reach toward the sky, embodying communication between the earthly and the divine, which I love that. And if you look at a Blue Vervain plant, it's a tall, skinny plant. It has these square stalks that resemble something that could be in the mint family, which is a kind of a common characteristic of a mint. But this is in the verbena family. This is not in the mint family. And it grows tall, and the leaves are beautiful and on opposite sides of each other. And then at the very top are these beautiful pastel colored purple flowers. And if you've ever seen a Blue Vervain plant and could properly identify it, you could appreciate it. If you're a hiker, you would probably be able to identify Blue Vervain, which is amazing. In folk tradition, they were gathered at dawn when dew still kissed the flowers, believed to capture the plant's full spiritual essence. And this was something that was really important. When I was growing up, my dad used to teach us that some plants you need to wait until a certain time of day till the dew has burned off. As far as the sun's come up and the dew is dissipated out off of the plants. But some plants, a certain affinity for being gathered and used when the dew is still on the plants, right? Now, the roots are less commonly used, but they symbolize grounding, as do most medicinal herbs when they're used in the root form. But this is not common in modern medicine. The common part of the plant that we use is the flowers and the leaves in modern medicine. So a decoction from the roots, sometimes carried to anchor a wandering spirit or mind. Okay. So whenever blue vervain was gathered, it was considered a ritual. One was to ask the plant's permission, offer thanks, and harvest with intention. And I believe this is something that should happen with every single plant that we harvest, even from our own, and especially from our own gardens, because then we can do it with deep intention. We can give thanks to the plant, and the plant responds. If you have ever tried this, maybe you're just a very analytical person who wants to grow your herbs, and that's also fine too. But if you were to actually take the time to realize that your intention and your giving of thanks to the plant for the medicine that it gives you with, it completely changes the energy and the frequency of how this plant comes into your life, comes into the things that you make out of it, and then affect your health. And I have noticed profound differences when I do this type of herbal making and herbal medicine, collecting even vegetables from my garden with the intention and the thanks. It completely changes the energetic frequency of them, which is really beautiful. One is to ask the plant's permission, offer thanks, and harvest with intention. A reminder that healing was a partnership between humans and nature. Okay, I really love that. In Native America, it was seen as a plant that was gifted by the Great Spirit. The Native Americans, the indigenous people, this was something that they believed was a gift from the Great Spirit, right? And I believe that we can look at that as absolutely completely true now. It thrives in moist meadows and stream banks where water spirits dwell. The watery habitat reflects its cooling and calming nature. Now in Europe, Vervain, it's actually a different species. It's a cousin species, but it has a lot of similar properties, right? It was revered as a sacred herb of the Druids. It was used for thousands of years, okay? It was laid on altars, used to consecrate ritual tools, and believed to invite in divine presence. It was also considered a bridge between worlds, right? So across culture, Vervain's natural home near waterways symbolized the spaces between realms where spirit and matter intertwine. Because we need to remember that we are spiritual beings living here in these human bodies, having a physical experience. And this is where the deep wisdom of plants, especially plants like blue vervain, they remind us of this, right? This is a very, very easy plant to cultivate. And like I said at the beginning of this is a plant that might show up in your yard just because the seeds, I think they find the homes where they know that people will not only appreciate them, but let them grow. And this is where I would be very careful not to just start bringing out all the plant, pulling all the weeds out, which is, of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with pulling out things that just blow into your yard. But I would say that this is a plant that loves to do that. And it's mostly propagated by the seeds. Now you can divide a root and you can plant it somewhere else. But I have a couple of friends here in Salt Lake who have blue vervain growing in their flower gardens that simply showed up, which is really, really beautiful. So I would love to know what you think about blue vervain. Is this brand new to you, or are you super familiar with it? This is something that is extremely bitter. It can be very hard. It's mostly not drunk in a tea, because drinking blue vervain tea will absolutely relieve a tension headache. It'll relieve pain in your neck. If you have tension in your neck, and sometimes you just need to power down these medicines. Maybe add a little bit of honey to it if you have access to fresh, blue vervain flowers and leaves. But my favorite way to consume blue vervain is in tincture form. And I haven't been without blue vervain for 40 plus years. It's been a constant companion for my digestion, for nervous tension, for muscular pain. It helped me through a lot of the times as a woman during my monthly cycle, and even through menopause as I passed through that as well. So I would love to know what you think about this amazing, beautiful, ancient plant that is just this humble little purple flower that is a beautiful addition to any flower garden and any herb garden. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you in the next one.